Beyond the Pour, crafted by California Tastings. I'm Nilu, your sommelier host, uncorking stories from visionary sommeliers, winemakers, chefs, and mixologists shaping our world. Today I'm joined by Oscar Navarro, the assistant winemaker at Napa Valley College. Raised in Napa Valley, he is a third generation member of a family deeply rooted in the wine and vineyard industry. Let's listen to his story. Welcome. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for the invite.
Oh my gosh, my absolutely my honor to have you. Thank you, Oscar, for joining. Um, so this podcast is called Beyond the Pour, and what I love about this is now that we get to talk about whatever we want in the industry. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
and hopefully not only do we learn about each other, learn from each other, but we're also gonna maybe solve some problems, maybe some issues in the industry that we can discuss. So I've kind of been asking these questions from everybody that I chat with. Um, but first of all, what I'd like to do is ask you to tell us a little bit about your journey into winemaking, and how you ended up at Napa Valley College, which is not a bad spot to be.
It's
Um,
not.
it sounds pretty cool. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. Started off real young, first generation Mexican American. My grandfather, he came over and worked at Franciscan back when back in the day. And my father ended up working in the vineyards his whole life. And not just here, but back in Mexico, he was a farmer from a very young age. And when he came over to Napa, he just continued that. That's his second um, knowledge is work the land. So as a young age, I was exposed to it and would tag along during summer breaks. Once harvest, usually the sparkling wines. That was the kind of the only time I would ever pick fruit because right after that school started. So
Right.
right, so my brother and I would tag along and we would run up and down the rows, pick up the drop fruit, and then it got to the point where we were old enough to actually pick. And so that was my first exposure to the wine industry. And then after high school, decided just to jump into it. Just as a more or less as a job, not really a passion quite yet. And started off at home, and then kind of worked my way down, meaning um, production size.
Hmm.
So was able to work at Laird, where that kind of opened a little bit more of my horizon when it came to exposure of different styles of winemaking. I mean, custom crush facility. It was insane, and just the knowledge that's being thrown at you, right? And then I made my way down to even smaller wineries. Worked a little bit at Mi Sueño, and then worked at a tasting room downtown Napa. So I also got to see the final stage of what a small boutique winery looks like, and not only looks like but tastes like.
Right.
So it's quite night and day.
I mean, that
Um,
journey from, picking the grapes
mhm,
from the vineyard and then actually seeing it in a bottle and pouring it.
absolutely.
So much work goes into it.
Hmm.
And what's fun about this is that fun and maybe not so fun. I mean, that's a lot of work, but you got to see the whole journey, which is
Yeah,
like the only way you can really understand it all, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So I kind of dabbed a little bit in many aspects of the industry, and then working there, I really realized production is where I want to be,
Okay.
and winemaking is where I truly wanted to be at. And I had a bunch of questions. Why? Why is it that this Cabernet tastes different from that Cabernet? And decided to enroll back to school.
Mhm.
Got my degree, my certificate, and in the transition of that, I was also able to work for probably one of the most famous winemakers in the world, Heidi Barrett. And aside of that, I also worked with Tony Arcudi, whom um, both of them have ignited my urge to continue to learn and continue to explore my winemaking interests.
Yeah.
So it was truly a blessing. The assistant winemaker at Fantesca,
Okay.
Nicholas Diaz, whom is now a really good friend of mine, and worked for the great family, the Hoffs. They're
Hmm.
amazing people. So it was truly an amazing experience those
Yeah.
last years that I worked there, and then opportunity came up um, to join the Napa Valley College, and I
Yeah.
just felt in my heart to that was the right call, and
Right.
I think it was, I think it is because not
Yeah.
only do I work with these students, I also help them answer their questions
Right.
with
Right.
with real with real life experience, not just
Yeah.
textbook and
Yeah.
well, if you add this, if you do this, this is the end result. Well, it's not
Yeah.
always the end result, and I can
But
tell you
you're,
that firsthand.
yeah, you're kind of you're in the lab with them, you're
Hmm.
hands-on, you're doing all sorts of things, which I want to hear about in a sec. But you know, you're passionate about what you're doing. And that's what, and connecting with these kids and really kind of guiding them, I would say,
Hmm.
right? That's what you're doing. Um, Now going back to, was it an internship that you did at Fantesca and kind of turned
No,
on to be was a
no. So it started off as a just cellar hand,
okay.
and then I worked there. My first harvest was in 15, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was 15, and got hired on, and within a couple of years later, I became the cellar master.
Yeah.
So it was an honor. It was an honor. It was a bragging right for me because I mean
Yeah.
I was a cellar master for Heidi Barrett and Tony Arcudi. So
My gosh. My
you
gosh.
know their
Incredible.
influences. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, talk about learning from the best, right?
yeah,
You're right
absolutely.
there at a young age, and it so Heidi Barrett, Tony Arudi, right?
Arcudi,
Accordi. Okay.
Arcudi.
Now did he work at the same time? Was he there at the same time with Heidi Barrett, or was it different?
Yeah.
Same time.
Um. Yeah. Go ahead.
So like these two are, powerhouse winemakers, right? And so you just kind of mentioned a little bit, but what was that like for you coming into that field as kind of a student, right? Because you were still at
Hmm.
the college,
Hmm.
and you knew who they were, and you're like, wow, I'm learning from these guys. I'm making wine with these guys. What did you feel?
Honored
Yeah.
because it's I would you go to the classes and you kind of meet new people and they ask where you work at and you tell them and it's like, oh wow, it's the name dropper, right?
Yep. Yep.
And but you have to keep in mind that it's not just the repetition of the name that they carry, which is phenomenal. I mean, they hold
Hmm.
so much merit and so much respect. It's
Hmm.
the fact that I took it upon myself to um, make sure I don't slip up,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so I learned so much, and it's something that I tell the students all the time. My goal is to um, plug and play, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
if I'm sitting here or if I'm working with a student and then an internship were to come up, I call my buddy, hey, this guy's ready to go. Boom.
Yeah.
Or if I can be able to call back and call the
Yeah.
hops and say, hey, I got the student, plug and play. It's just me, but different me. And
Yeah.
that's my goal. And that learned that a lot with Tony, particularly Tony. He was very um, his attention to detail is a different level. I mean,
Really
oh yeah, it's very, very cool. I mean, if you
love it. Yeah.
if you ever get exposed to he pretty much it's kind of a surgical room kind of thing where
Oh
you
my
everything has
gosh.
to be,
Yeah.
and it's true. I mean, you can't.
Clean and just organized, and yeah, and you walk through those production facilities. I've been able to walk through a few, and And it's like, wow, how, you can feel that this wine is going to be amazing just because everything is like on point and clean, organized and, controlled. And I'd love to obviously meet him. That sounds absolutely fantastic. So if you were going to describe a day during harvest, you were in the 15 harvest with Fantesca.
Yes.
Um, what, if it was just a day, what was the most exciting part of that day? Just think of one day that you were doing harvest there. Probably early morning, and what's the day like?
Actually, I just remembered it's not the 15th, it's the 17th. But
So,
yeah, so the 17th was actually that was the year of the fires.
yeah,
And
yeah. What was that like?
so it was scary. I mean, we were
Yeah,
it was that night I remember well prior to it was everything was going as planned according to that was my first harvest with them, so I really didn't know what to expect. But um, coming from other wineries and you walk into a winery that the pressure of making sure the wines and the fruit is dealt with such delicacy. Um, Room for error is minimal, right? You can't it's just you can't really can't mess up. So it was interesting. There was a heat wave that brought in a lot of fruit, I remember. And then right before the fires, we were actually the my intern at the time, Nick Sherry, him and I we were fixing to leave. It was late, and we look up and we can hear the wind just blasting through the trees, and we're like, wow, this kind of doesn't feel right, you know?
I remember that evening. Yes.
So
I mean,
then,
what I mean, but you hadn't pulled all the grapes, or you had
we were we were
some.
practically done.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we were practically done. We only had a couple of lots left, and um, it was new vines. I remember. So it really didn't make much of a loss,
Oh, good.
but
Okay, good.
it was an interesting harvest. It definitely allowed us to work as you saw the winemakers really kind of um, kicking
Get
in high
creative.
gear,
Yeah,
creative.
yeah,
It was really really interesting to see all that, and to be a part of it was again a great experience.
yeah. It's like again learning under these tough conditions, and it's never going to be that hard again. You know what
Yeah, I
I'm
hope
saying? So
not.
that we're like, can it be uphill from now? That's that. No, that was just so scary. I definitely understand because I was part of that whole thing, and I remember how it affected everybody. So scary, but like, thank God we got through it. Um, what was it like working with the Hoffs? Did they give you did they give you like creative freedom, or was it structured? Like, did they say, you know what, we trust you, do your thing, or they were like, it has to be, certain way?
Um, that's a good question. It's definitely structured, but it was structured with a purpose.
Yeah.
It was structured with a purpose. It was always up to the winemakers, just discretion to do however and whatever they thought was best. The hops were very involved, especially during the final blends.
Yeah.
And so my role was really more or less kind of making sure things got done, things were dealt with correctly. Everything was topped off. So there was again, it was just to make sure that when it got to the point of blending, that everything was set.
Yeah.
And the hops gave me um, so much so much confidence because
Love it.
they would see the numbers, especially Dwayne, the owner, Dwayne Hoff. He would see the numbers. He would see the ETS results, and one of the conversations I remember having with him was, Oscar, the VAs are stable. I
Great.
said that's good, which that's what you want. You don't want your VA levels to creep up, and if everything's stable, then that means you have a clean cellar. Then you have a clean
Beautiful.
cellar hand. So
Yeah.
your wines are going to be clean. So,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of that took place, but it was very structured.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I mean, Fantesca for me is one of the wine, all their wines for me is one of those that I open on a special occasion.
Mhm.
All their Churchill,
Yes.
the Mercy and the this and that. Um, I, I have to say we have a few bottles of those, and my husband and I are kind of addicted to those. But damn, I'm gonna have to go back and see what I have from 17 now. Because if
Yeah.
you were involved, okay,
I,
okay.
I
I
was
have I
involved
have a
from
lot.
17 up until 21.
Yeah. We
So,
love it. We absolutely love it. And we go whenever we can. Like if we've got friends in town, we'll try and get over there.
absolutely.
Absolutely gorgeous location. And that's Spring Mountain Road
Hmm.
in Sonoma County. So whoever's listening and wants to give it a try,
It's in St.
it,
Helena.
yeah, so you go all the
St. Helena,
way.
Sonoma, yes.
So like, because I live in Santa Rosa, so you can go Spring Mountain kind of
Hmm.
goes all the way to so it's kind of close to Pride.
Pride's up on the hill.
Yeah, isn't it a little
Yeah,
bit further down
it's
towards St. Helena?
yes. We're
Yeah.
literally right across the street from. I still talk if I'm still
You're
there.
still there. You're still there.
I wish. No, just kidding.
No, you love
I
this
miss
job
them. I
more.
miss
You
them.
love
I
this
miss
job.
them. I
Yeah,
miss them. I miss I miss the team, but I definitely
love
do
it.
enjoy where I'm at. But they're right across the
Yeah.
street from
Uh,
Spring Mountain Vineyards.
but yeah, Spring Mountain Vineyards. Exactly.
Yes.
Well, that's that area, the AVA is
Yes.
crazy. I mean, everything's fantastic there. But definitely check out Fantesca if you haven't gone to it. Um, and now you're obviously in the classroom and you're in the, lab and whatever, doing the winemaking there. How do you balance letting students learn through trial and error, while still maintaining quality? They're playing around, they're trying different things, or are you like, um, no, it's my way. You're not
Um,
trying anything out.
no,
I doubt that, by the way. I'm just gonna ask it, but knowing you, there's no
yeah.
way you would let them do their thing.
Definitely not. But no, we definitely we so there's this okay, so we do have classes where we allow students involvement, right? Where
Yeah.
or not involvement, but sorry, their um opinions, right? Where
Mm.
what we'll do is we'll do a lot, right? A control lot. And out of that lot we'll take something out. Like we'll
Yeah.
take a certain pectic enzyme or we'll work with a different pectic. So it's a trial, right? And we do a little trial of like, let's say seven of them. So that's the point where the class has involvement when it comes to winemaking decisions. Um, for me, it's really important that they understand that every winery is different.
Hmm.
And although we are extremely small in comparison, I try my hardest to get students involved in every little aspect. We only produce four wines, so that's only four lots that I have to play with. So
Okay.
when fruit gets delivered, it's like, okay, everybody needs to be involved in this step because there's only four more times that you guys are going to be able to see it. But on the flip side, I also enjoy interacting with them and
Hmm.
expressing and showing them and talking to them and based on experience.
Of course, of course. I mean, everything that one teaches should be about, not should just be about it, but I feel like, even I know Paul Wagner, who we know both,
Yes.
who teaches a lot of classes there, and runs basically the whole education department. Um, he's very much in for the wine, I'm saying.
Hmm.
He's very much about experiences, talk about, your own experiences,
Yes.
and get a story going, because people can relate to that way better,
Absolutely.
understand that. So
Absolutely.
I love that. And so, in the whole world of winemaking, there are, right now, trends, obviously, and you know, the most interesting ones are, maybe it's past already, but orange wine, the natural thing. What are your thoughts, real fast, about that? Is it here to stay? Is it gone? Is it going? What's happening with that?
It's when that trend came out, I really really did not like it. It's like this is not what we are supposed to be doing, right? But on the flip side, we are everything's changing.
Right.
The market's changing. Um, I think we're at a point where the industry is going to have to reset, and by doing so, we may see a different um, creative kind of wave come back again. I am seeing a little bit more of those orange wines. Actually, we did a tasting. We have these phenomenal tastings on Fridays at the college.
I keep
We
meaning
had
want
a,
to join those. Yeah,
you got to
I
come
know.
and check it out.
Well, I
Um, we
would
had
love
one
to.
from, we had one from, I don't want to butcher the label, but I think it's extraordinary or have to,
Extraordinaire,
yes,
extraordinaire.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I was very
Pleasantly,
surprised,
pleasantly surprised.
pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there's some orange wines going on there.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's it's insane, and
yeah.
how he treats his wines is no different than how I would have treated my wines.
Right.
So it was really kind of like, wow, okay, we're both in the same spectrum when it comes to attention to the wines and how we ferment the small blocks versus the whole lot or the whole vineyard in this case,
Mm-hmm.
and then you do a final blend and it comes out to be an orange wine. Um, I was pleasantly surprised, and I was again. Do I see more of that? Probably not,
Yeah.
but I do see a wave um, of new interesting
That's it.
winemaking. I mean, I
Yeah.
think I had a student of mine wanting to do a project with cannabis and wine
Yeah.
infused,
Yeah.
and I said, go for it. There's really nothing stopping you. Um, don't quite know what your market or
Well, there is a demand for that.
I didn't
And it's
realize it.
yeah, and you and I have talked about these things, and there, anything is open to now to play with. It's like
Yes.
it's open to new ideas, new thoughts, new this, new that. And the low alcohol wines are really
Yes.
in. Um, do you think producers are responding well to that? Um, when we look at California wine specifically, and we're mostly in Napa and Sonoma, right? We're not seeing low alcohol necessarily on anything. We're 12 to 14 to 15 to, God knows what. Um, where in Europe you would see the
hmm
lower alcohol. Obviously, a lot to do with climate, I'm thinking, right? Maybe not. I
yes,
don't
it
know.
it yeah, it definitely has to do with climate, and I mean, there's a lot of factors to it, right? I mean, um, France, a lot of things are illegal that they can't do that we can. For example, we
Oh,
we
okay.
can manipulate the fruit. We can manipulate the fruit to where the point where it's so dehydrated that you're getting fruit coming in the winery at 28 bricks, 30 bricks. So you're forced to put water in.
Right.
But there's so many things that can go wrong with that, right? The chemistry behind it and all that stuff. So there's that factor. You mentioned the alcohol levels. I have seen a trend of lower alcohol levels,
Hmm.
which is it's great. I mean, it's
Why
it's
not? Why not?
I, I think about the wines in the 90s
Yeah.
and how they're holding up now, and most of them are still tasting really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that just tells me back then they used to pick, uh, lower bricks, so you had
Hmm.
lower alcohol,
Hmm.
higher acidity.
Right.
So that means that the pH is lower. So there's a lot of factors to it that now we're having to see that, okay, these wines are dying down after 7 years or,
Yeah.
whatever the, that, 10
So
years kind of give or take, but
makes a difference in the life of the
absolutely.
the wine itself. But it's such an interesting conversation. Um, Americans seem to have liked the higher alcohol, right? They've
Yes.
generally. I mean, I just got into wine 10 years ago. but obviously I've been drinking it since I was 21, of course, never
Hmm.
before. That's a joke. No, I'm joking. Um, 21 exactly. But actually my mom made some wine. I think I was 18 in this crazy ceramic gigantic pot. Um
Okay.
in the bathtub. Now that's another story we'll sit down and talk about one night. But it tasted so damn good.
Yeah.
And I think I was 18 and probably was like a cab. I don't know what it was. I didn't even know anything about grapes at that point, but she freaking made the whole thing in the bath in
Hmm.
in a little bathroom side thing that we had, and it was delicious. But tastes are changing. Um since I've got into wine, I've noticed Napa, Sonoma County, so much higher alcohol, and then
Yes.
you go old world and it's just way lower. And for me, that was actually more enjoyable always. Now,
Hmm.
the younger generation, even here in the US, is wanting the low ABV. And it's like, what is going on? I'm really confused. Is it because they don't want to feel drunk? They don't want to have a hangover? Is it they don't I'm not sure. I'd love to hear, your point of view on it, but it's a big discussion.
There's a lot of things to it, right? I mean, what it comes down to it is what is cheaper to make, right? Is picking fruit that is half the weight because of dehydration more economically better. We can always add water, that's free. Um,
Mm.
until you hit a drought year, then you're really kind of like, oh, I need to
Yeah.
count my every single drop counts.
Right.
But I agree with you. I think, my thinking has always been that when you describe a Napa cab, the first thing that comes to mind is big,
Yeah.
right?
Punch you in the face kind of big.
Exactly, right? And
Right.
and one of my biggest clients that I ever had whenever I worked in hospitality were people from Texas.
Mm.
So when they heard this wine is big, it was a guaranteed sale because, oh yeah,
State wine.
we know
State.
we love
Yeah.
big. We're
Yeah.
Texas, we're big. So so that became kind of the funnel, right? Where a lot of the commercial was that I think, my opinion, is going to these states that are kind of, they love the bigger things in life in the sense of.
Right.
So when your descriptor is, oh, you have this Bordeaux that is lower alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
elegant, light-ish,
Mm-hmm.
versus this Napa Valley Cab that the tannins are just,
Yeah.
they're tight, they're there, and it's higher alcohol, so you have to have the steak with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there's that, right? And I do see the trend of lower alcohols. I personally am not a fan of the high alcohol wines. I think it borderlines what winemaking is.
Right.
Um, if you're having to manipulate versus how to keep the wine from burning
Yeah. Well,
your
hopefully it's
palate.
not burning. That wouldn't be a bad thing. But I mean, I say this, but I friggin' love some of those cabs, that
Hmm.
they make in Napa. Um, you know, but yeah, generally speaking, first of all, the younger generation's not going to spend that money.
No,
They're
no,
not
no, no,
they're not going to be drinking those cabs, let's be
no.
real. And so if they're drinking something lighter during the week, they're going to work next day, they don't want to have a hangover, they want something like, if they're even doing that. Um Plus they don't want to spend all their money on uh one bottle of wine,
Yeah,
so if you're
absolutely.
talking 120 $140 a, a cab, who cares? They're not going to do that. So I
No,
think some of that has to do with financial stuff maybe. But it's definitely an interesting turn of events at this moment, in the wine
absolutely.
world, so lots to talk about. Now, we kind of maybe just answered this question, but if you could change one thing about the wine industry, um any general thing, what would it be?
Um, oh, there's so many things.
I'm saying, like,
uh,
okay, you're like, bring all the ABVs down to 9 or
no,
something. No,
it's
I'm joking. But
I just one thing that I would probably change. that I would like to change is breakdowns of what's in that bottle.
Right.
Although that you can legally put, to call it a cab, you can go 90/10, depending on the AVA.
Mm.
It doesn't hurt to know what's in it. I mean,
Transparency. Transparency. Yeah.
transparency,
Yeah.
transparency. I
Yeah.
mean, that's key. I mean,
I love that.
it's also that's what I would love to include more information because I mean,
Yeah.
as a consumer, I mean, you would love to know what you go to these places. Oh, I had their cab, and then you come to realize, well, it's 80% cab, and the rest is Petit Syrah, or whatever it
Mm.
may be.
Yeah.
So, for those that are taking educational routes, right, like Psalms, like yourself, they're breaking down wines and are having to distinguish every varietal by
Very
taste, which is
difficult.
a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
Um, and you get a prominent blend, proprietary blend, and they call it cab.
They call it a cab, and then you're like, this is a cab, but I'm picking up some pepper here. you know is it Petit Verdot? What is going on here? And then you picking up, but exactly. I think it's the more information, the more transparency. Um, People would like that. People would enjoy that. It's like, picking up something at the supermarket and having the ingredients
Exactly.
written out. It really makes you, I think, at this point where we're all researching everything, it
Hmm.
makes it a little bit, I love the answer. Um, and so here we are with canned wines, alternative closures, and minimalist labels going on. Sometimes not much on there. It could be just an orange color on a label or a green color with one letter. Who knows? Um, how do you feel about these packaging brands trends, basically? Uh, and obviously, the screw top compared to the cork, just would love to see what you think. Again, it's a big question mark for a lot of people.
I think you and I we had this conversation during the time you came in
Mm-hmm.
for Paul Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when it comes down to it, it's wine. Unfortunately, is it's definitely a show, right? When you go to the restaurants and you sit down and have dinner with your, whoever, date, wife, husband, it's a special occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you have the server come up and they open the scoop cap. It's not quite, attractive.
And you just spent $1,000 on that bottle.
Exactly.
No, take
So,
it back.
so exactly. So, um, and corks are getting, they're changing. I mean, you have the ones that are
Mm.
synthetic, and you have the half synthetic, half natural, the
Mm.
blends, the I forget the other ones, but there's so many of them that even that's changing and
Engineered kind of things,
engineered exactly. So
whatever,
or
different styles. Yeah.
so there's so many things that's going on. The labels alone, they're changing as well. So for me personally, I still love the attraction of the cork.
Yes.
Um, the labels right now are getting a little out of control. I mean, I'm seeing labels that are um, I forget the producer, but this happened at the grocery store. This happened to walk by. I'm like, wow, that's a
Yeah.
really huge label. Well,
Yeah.
they put a back label on, and it's a Sauvignon Blanc. So the back label, the print where it sticks on, is the front label. So there's no actual front label.
Oh.
So I'm
So you
looking at it,
can
I'm like,
see through it, you mean?
you
You
can
can
see through
Well,
it.
Honig is like that a little bit. Honig Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that
don't
might
know
be
if you.
them. That might be
I
them.
love their Sauv Blanc, by the way. I always use it for the
Hmm.
price. You can't beat it.
You
For my
can't beat it.
classes, I use it. But it's got writing on the back of
Yes.
the label, so the most of it's see through. So is I mean, we're at a point where we're trying to find something original and something different. So I mean, they've been doing it for a bit, but absolutely interesting world, right? With the
Yeah,
whole
absolutely.
labels and this and that going on. Um, and I just want to add, to your point, the cork scenario definitely looks cool, definitely looks
Hmm.
better. Um, but am I right in saying you're the winemaker? Um, there is nothing wrong with the screw top.
There's nothing wrong with screw taps.
It's not
There's
going to
excellent.
affect. It's not gonna. There's nothing negative, I should say.
We actually had a discussion on this for open discussion with during the class one day, and aside of the aesthetics of opening a screw cap in front of your date,
Yeah.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. If anything, you're minimizing the potential corked
Right.
effect.
Yeah.
So you have that aspect of it. Again, um, this is just based on the research that we've
Visual.
done,
Yeah. Yeah.
visual, the both manufacturers, both cork and screw cap, came out and had the same discussion, and
Yeah.
ironically, they both said the same thing. So that
So
just
it's
tells me
just
that it's really a preference, right?
it's
But
ingrained in our it's ingrained now in our you know what we expect for an expensive bottle of wine being opened
absolutely,
in front of us. And the Psalms in the restaurants do it so well. They just it's a show. You know what I'm
it's really a
saying? It's
show.
is a beautiful show. And yes, I get that part. So that's really really true. Now, Napa Valley are Napa Valley producers, the people that you talk
Hmm.
to right now in Napa Valley, because I know you're obviously always in touch with these people. Um, do you think they're experimenting more with non-traditional varietals, or are we still sticking to the cap culture? Is anything changing in that aspect right now?
Um, Again, it's going back to what I said. I think the industry is going to reset,
Yeah.
and by resetting, I don't just mean cost. That's also that I feel like that's going to balance out as well.
Hmm.
But what I also do see is a lot more Bordeaux varietals, not just the norm, right? You're going to see a little bit more vineyards. I
Yeah.
believe they're going to be one experimenting with different clones of different
Yeah.
Bordeaux varietals that the Malbecs. I'm sorry, the Merlots, the Petit Bordeaux, and it's just because there's not really much out there.
I
And
really hope Merlot gets to come back.
me too. I really like it.
I mean, almost at that point where I need to make Sideways 2, make that movie like a 2 version and say
Yes,
Merlot's amazing.
there you
And
go.
film it in Bordeaux somewhere. And God, like what happened to that pork grape? It is so delicious, right?
Yeah,
So
it's unfortunate that all it took was just one movie to just.
crazy.
But again,
It's crazy.
that's an example of what the market is, right? Because
Yeah.
when something picks up, everybody wants to do it.
Yes.
Oh, cab sold for this much last year. Well, guess what I'm doing this year? I'm replanting a vineyard and doing cab. Well, the
Yeah.
unfortunate thing is you won't see full results in not until 5 years, you
Right.
know?
I
So
know some of those producers, when I was working in Napa, would pull out some of their Merlot and plant
mhm,
more Cab, knowing it's going to take 4 or 5 years to get any good, good grapes out of it. So
absolutely.
it was making such a difference in the price range that it was worth it for them. Here's a probably the last question because I know your time is precious and you've been so wonderful. I'm asking everybody that's on the podcast a question to do with music.
Okay.
So what is a song that explains the vibe of your teaching style? Or, in the classroom, if you're imagining you guys are talking about something, what's a song you would pick that
Wow.
describes you and your teaching style?
Oh goodness. I would say so. Oh, that's so interesting. I love all kinds of
Music.
random
Yeah.
random music, random
Mm.
songs. I mean, anything from Spanish to reggae, from reggae to metal, and metal to
Yay.
to
Yeah.
classical. And
Yeah.
um, I would say for me, it would have to be "Welcome to the Jungle." It would
And
have to be
why? Why is
be,
the question?
because there's nothing more than exactly that. I mean, you picture the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
meaning you had just finished, whatever X amount of tons that day. And then you get a call from the, vineyard manager. Hey, we accidentally picked another 20. It's coming your way right now.
You're
And then
like,
on top
no,
of
what am I gonna do with it?
and then on top of that, you have a press load going, Chardonnay
Yeah,
coming in, and you have two or three tour guides going in and out, and the guests wanting to. So it's exactly that. And
love it.
but
Yeah.
you have to know how to take all of that in and change the momentum and push forward because it's exactly that.
So
It just gets
incredibly
you pumped
true.
up,
Yeah, yeah.
and gets you ready for the next day.
Yeah, I wish I had that on my phone right now and I'd play it for you. I love that answer, and I can envision that with you, right, in the classroom or in the lab or the winemaking facility at the Napa College. Super, super cool. Well, I am excited to just watch your journey because it's
Thank you.
only going to keep getting better and better. I know that.
Thank you.
Um, and I really want to thank you, Oscar, for joining us on
No, it was a
Beyond the
pleasure.
Pour. Absolutely my pleasure. So
It was a
hopefully I
pleasure.
get to come back in a few months and you come back to us and we talk a little bit more and see
Absolutely.
what's changed and what's not changed and we can figure out the world, right? Just being on our
Absolutely.
computers.
That's what, yeah, exactly right.
Thank
No, it
you
was a
so
pleasure. It was a
much.
true pleasure. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye bye.